Shalom. So we're going to look at Ecclesiasticus 9 and verse 1. It says, "Be not jealous over thy wife of thy bosom, and teach her not an evil lesson against thyself." What are some of the ways that we teach our women evil lessons against us? Right? Let's go to the book of 1 Ezra chapter 4 and 26. It says, "Yea, many there be that have run out of their wits for women, and become servants for their sakes." How do we become servants to our women? You see, we love them so much, right? Because that's not real love, right? We love them so much to the point where we cannot even tell them when they're wrong. It tampers with our morality. Morality meaning, making decisions between what is right and what is wrong, right? And I'm just gonna give you about an experience, right? One day I was sitting down and I was sitting next to the coop, right? The chicken coop, and there was this guy passing by with his woman, and she took up a stone, right? Remember, he has to be seeing all of this. They were walking together. She took up a stone. Even when she turns to throw it at the coop, he was just there, never said anything, right? And it was when she threw the stone and the stone actually hit the coop, she realized I was sitting right there. She could have hit me, right? But guess what? The guy only smiled at her. She was so frightened when she saw me that she grabbed onto the guy. But this is what happens, right? You cannot correct your woman. You cannot say, "Hey, babe, this is wrong. Don't do this because it can play out this way, but do this instead." You don't even have that courage to say that, to communicate with her. You become servant because you put her up on this pedestal. You cannot correct your woman when she's going off. And then all of this accumulates. So over a process of time, guess what happens? She loses the respect for you. Right? So here you have this young woman, grew up in a decent home. She's not vulgar, she's not violent and so forth. But after a process of time, she became a monster in your own house. That's why it says here, "Teach her not an evil lesson against thyself." Because everything that you have been teaching her is going to work against your marriage. It's going to work against your household. Right? Now let's go to Genesis chapter 2. It says, verse 17, "But of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die." Right? So Adam was learning this. Going over to Genesis chapter 3, it says, verse 2, "And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die." Where did the woman learn that? She learned it from her husband. So it's not that women don't know morality, they don't know the moral code. It's not that they don't know what to do and what not to do. But this thing is natural. A lot of people are controlled, are still under the submission of the subconscious mind. It's just like you have a child. How do you teach a child an evil lesson? Guess what? The child is doing the spitting, babies how they spit sometimes. You never stopped them. You never corrected them. You never slapped them to let them know that, hey, that's wrong. So you know what happens when you go out in the public? The child starts spitting at strangers. The child starts spitting at you when you're trying to talk to the child, because you never corrected them in the instant that it mattered the most. It's the same thing with the wife, right? So here the woman is telling the guy that, no, I'm not gonna learn your culture, I'm not gonna learn your ways, because whatever can happen. No, after a process of time, what happens? It says, and when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband. So guess what? Your woman knows Christmas is wrong. She knows of the consequences, but guess what? She now comes into your house with a Christmas tree. And what do? You partake in the festival. You are so weak for her that you cannot stand ground. You cannot put the Most High first. You put the woman on a pedestal where the Most High should have been. So over a process of time, this loving, charming little lady that you had became a monster in your own house, because you did not control the things when you had the power or the chance to control it. Women don't just want men in their lives just to do things. They want us to take control. Being active in a woman's life is one thing, but taking control is a whole other thing. You demand that. It's not something you need to ask. You step in and you do. Because guess what? After everything that she's already been through, after the ways of this society, her brain learns something. And she goes on, and it never stops. So now that you come into her life, guess what? It is your responsibility. It is your responsibility to take that control. It is your responsibility to demand that control. Right? So when you see them doing the wrong thing, don't become their servants to the point where you cannot say, hey, or put a stop into something. Right? These programs, they're subconscious, and they're so numb to that reality where they're just doing things automatically, absent thinking, absent discernment. It's just like a child, the way a child operates. Everything is done subconsciously, even though they're physically doing the thing, it looks like they're actually conscious, but they're not. It is when something goes wrong, they realize what they did. That is not what love is. Love comes with correction. And if you can watch a person destroying herself, what portion of love do you have for her? You know what she's doing is wrong. You know that it's going to come against you, against your household, and yet you remain silent on the matter. So this is one of the reasons why a lot of our marriages turn around against us. Just because what? We did not take the control that we were supposed to take. We did not demand the control. We just left everything in her hands. She's just running off a subconscious program. So now you can understand why the prophets, they called out to Adam and not to the woman, because it was his job to take control. He was to be blamed. So even though the woman was in the wrong, he has to account for it, because it was his job to keep her in line. It's just like you as a guardian or a parent. If the child does a certain thing, guess what? You're not going to blame the child. If the law comes in, they're not going to blame the child. You, the parent, have to take the responsibility. Where were you when they were playing with this or playing with that?